Bienvenidos a Monterrey. Estamos aquí en México y este es el Radio Vagabond Podcast. Aquí se encuentra Pale Bo.
Where are you going?
Monterrey.
How many days in Monterrey?
10 days in Monterrey and then 4 days in Cancun.
Okay. You're going to Cancun airplane or both?
The what?
Cancun.
I fly to Florida. Yeah, plane.
Okay. The sign, please. Here. That's it.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Meet Palle Bo, a full-time traveler and digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world. This is the Radio Vagabond.
I'm in Mexico now, and I am about to get on an Uber. Here it is. Yeah.
Listo, jovenazo.
¿Cómo?
Listo. Ready.
Okay. ¿Habla inglés?
No.
No.
Una que otra.
Hablo un poquito español, pero solamente un poquito.
Yo igual con el inglés.
Sí.
As I'm in the Uber, on my way to my home for the next 10 days, trying to communicate in my broken Spanish, let me just say welcome.
Español está difícil. Complica.
Soy de Dinamarca, pero en
This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. Whenever you need a hotel anywhere in the world, go to Hotels25.com. That would get you the best price. Hotels25.com searches a bunch of the biggest hotel sites in one simple search. Hotels25.com.
Dicen el español es difícil a comparación de otra lengua.
My name is Palle Bo. This is the Radio Vagabond, episode 201. Welcome to Mexico. Bienvenido a Monterrey, Mexico.
This is the Radio Vagabond Podcast.
When I got here 24 hours ago, I got into an Uber and he didn't speak any English. And in my broken Spanish, I managed to ask him if that was normal, that no one here speaks English. And he said, oh, most people do. I just don't, but most people do. He's not right about that. I've met one person, and that's my Airbnb host, that actually speaks English. I've been in contact with more than 10 people, and none of them speak a word of English. So this is good for my Spanish. I will really get some training. Now I'm in the center of Monterrey, and I just thought I'd check it out and walk a little bit around, and then in an hour and a half there's a free walking tour, and that's always a good way to start my exploring of a new place. So I've been doing some work last night and today, and now it's time to indulge myself in some sightseeing.
In the latest episode, I was in San Antonio at Tejas Rodeo, and before that I spent the day in the city. I visited the Alamo and the iconic Riverwalk downtown, where you can stroll, shop, and dine along a 15-mile long, winding waterway. I didn't have anything from that in the latest episode, mostly because I didn't find any of the locals having time to talk with me. But as a pure coincidence here in Monterrey, I found out that one of the other guests on this free walking tour is a tour guide himself from San Antonio.
My new amigo.
That's it, yeah.
Brent, you're a tour guide in San Antonio.
Yeah, that's right. We started our walking tours there in May of this year, and it's taken off, and it's growing every day. So we're making lots of friends. Lots of amigos.
Yeah, and that is the name of it, right?
That is Amigo Free Walking Tours.
So we'll try to get the word amigo in as many times as possible in this chat. When I was there, I went to the Riverwalk, and that's an obvious place to start, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. The river is actually the whole reason that the city began in that region of the area, because it was called Yanaguana, meaning refreshing waters, all going back to that original water. And today we still have people that come there to see the refreshing waters of the Riverwalk. So,
being a tour guide that's not your main job. And for the people listening to this, I would give you a challenge. Is Brent an attorney? Is he a finance guy? Or is he a hairdresser? You'll get the answer right after this.
You are listening to the Radio Vagabond. We'll be right back.
Hello, Radio Vagabond listeners.
Hey, we are big Palebo fans. Ideally, we're all on our journey, just like Polly, to a life we design. Whether you have kids or an empty nester, we invite you to check out our podcast, The Open Nesters.
Our unique podcast explores personal, intellectual, physical, sexual, and spiritual journeys of life as we reinvent ourselves at this stage of life we call Act 3. Palebo is an inspiring traveling nomad as this open nester, and you can hear him as we interview him on episode 10.
And if you like to hear from others who are writing Act 3 of their lives, please join us every week for a new episode, which is available on every podcast platform and on theopennesters.com. I'm Amir.
And I'm Tessa, and we'd love to have you with us on the journey. We feel certain it will also become yours. Visit theopennesters.com.
You can follow Palebo on his Facebook page. Join the conversation about traveling and being a digital nomad. You can also see pictures, videos, and stories that don't necessarily make it into the podcast. Simply search for the Radio Vagabond.
Back to Brent Salter, Chief Amigo from San Antonio. So, what do you think? Apart from being an Amigo walking tour guide, and yeah, Chief Amigo is his official title. Is he an attorney, a finance guy, or a hairdresser?
Okay, Brent, we're back. What do you do when you're not a tour guide?
Well, you could come away with good stories from any of those professions. Unfortunately, mine is the most dull of them, I'm afraid, with finance. So it was really an impetus for me to go into something where I could use creativity and to express myself freely outside of Excel spreadsheets and tax code of the IRS. So lots of reasons to get out there and to have a good time with guests visiting our city.
Yeah, and you also told me that you teach piano. You're not the typical finance guy.
No, I'm not, but I am always looking for opportunities and ways to make time to fit 60 seconds into the unforgiving minute, as it's been said once.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about San Antonio. It's one of the biggest cities in the U.S. It's about the size of the capital of my country, 1.2 million. And so it's big, but it's not huge.
That's right. Yeah, it's the 7th largest city in the United States in terms of population, which as of 2000 was 1,144,646 people. But since then, we've had a census, and we're around 1.4 million people in the urban area. What's interesting about San Antonio, that the population ranks us 7th in the U.S., but our urban downtown, according to the urban density, we are actually ranked 31st in the United States in terms of downtown size. So,
and how is it different from the other big cities in Texas? Because 4 of the biggest cities in Texas are in the top 11 of the U.S. So that's Houston, Dallas, and Austin.
San Antonio, yeah.
So how's it different?
San Antonio, what really sets it apart is the history that you have there. History in terms of what took place on the land, but also history that's palpable, that you can see every day walking on the streets. Yeah, there are wonderful characteristics in Austin. They're very, very different from who we are in San Antonio. Houston has a great reputation for business and oil, as does Dallas. But really, they cannot compare to the history that you see all around San Antonio. So we become the top tourist destination in Texas because of the things that people can see and do there. And Austin's making great strides toward that. They are definitely appealing to the younger.
Yeah, Austin got the music.
Yeah, the
and
music.
the weirdness.
They do. They have the weirdness factor, which makes them niche and makes them special, and that's great. But in terms of overall appeal to families, San Antonio's got it going on, not just for tourists, but also conventions and conferences. So we're very fortunate to have that.
And is it more cowboy land? Is it more the Texas that we as Europeans feel when we think Texas? A lot of guys with cowboy hats and boots and big belt buckles.
That's right. Actually, San Antonio has a very rich cattle and horsemen history. In fact, the first known reference to the lasso was in San Antonio. And barbed wire, which is seen on almost all the ranches of the United States, really, it made its big debut in San Antonio also. It had its premiere. And so, yeah, we have tons of history that goes back to the horses and the cattle. They were actually some of the first things that the Spaniards left there. When they came over in the 1690s, every time they crossed a river, they left 2 cows and they left 2 horses, so they would reproduce and be able to sustain the land of future Spaniard citizens who came over. And so when those people did come over, they said, man, look at how many cows and horses there are all over this place. And it became, in the late 1700s, it became the number one industry in San Antonio, was ranching and these cattle drives to other markets of New Orleans and Florida. So pretty interesting stuff.
That is such a unique story. Wow. And we must remember the Alamo.
Yes, never forget the Alamo.
Never forget the Alamo.
But what I like to remind people of, often when they see the Alamo, they say, well, it's smaller than what I imagined it would be. It is. And but the funny thing with that is that it's actually smaller than it was supposed to be, too. They never finished building it. So I think even the original people who dreamt up the chapel there on the mission would have hoped it would amount to much more than it actually did. Yeah. So,
but definitely a must-see when you get to San Antonio. And I enjoyed my few couple of hours I spent there.
I'm glad to hear that.
So cool to find you.
Yeah, it's very, very good. Always looking for friends, and if you look for a friend, you'll find them. You've just got to
if I look for amigos.
For an amigo, exactly.
So remind me again the name of the company and how people will find you.
Yeah, sure. So the tour's name is Amigo Free Walking Tours, and our website's Amigo SA, as in San Antonio, amigosa.com. And we're on TripAdvisor and Google and Facebook and all of that. So.
Thank you so much.
Of course, it's a pleasure talking with you, Paul.
There's a link to Amigo Free Walking Tours San Antonio in the notes and on the radiovagabond.com. And then we meet the Monterrey tour guide, Clarissa, that takes us around the center of the city and teaches us a lot about Monterrey.
Yes, and another and the most important dish here in Monterrey is the cabrito. Cabrito in English is baby goat.
After the tour, I sit down and have a chat with her. And if you think that Brent is the only free walking tour guide with a surprising day job, think again.
Clarissa, we just finished a walking tour, and this is something that you started, but it's not your day job.
Yes, it's not I'm not enfocated in like 100% because I'm a geophysicist and I work... Geophysicist.
Wow, I'm so impressed.
So I work as geophysicist from Monday to Friday, and on weekends I offer this kind of tour because I want to improve my English and because I want to know people around the world and know something about the cities where they lived.
So your tour, is that typically the one that we just did?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's 2 hours and we start. It's all right downtown Monterrey.
Yes, it's only here in the downtown Monterrey, and we visit 30 important places and in around 2 hours walking.
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the first things that you took us to, and I'm so glad, this is why I go on these walking tours, was I discovered the whole area of the old town, and for me, okay, now I feel I'm in Mexico.
Yes, it's the most important neighborhood, the Barrio Antiguo, or the old town, and it's the most representative area of Monterrey because nowadays it's like industry city, and all of the buildings and all the buildings are new, but that area it is still preserves. So that's a good option to go there and to go with the people who is new here in downtown.
One of the great things about doing these free walking tours as one of the first things when you get to a new city is that you get tips on where to go next. Restaurants, bars, museums, and other things. Here in Monterrey, it was the same. Clarissa pointed out the historical museum, Museo de Historia Mexicana, in a magnificent building by the river. In fact, the ticket gives access to more than one museum. Clarissa recommended it so much, so I had to go a few days later. I have a bit more with Clarissa in a bit, but first let's skip ahead a few days. The historical museum is very modern and interactive.
I'm in the historical museum now here in Monterrey. And despite the fact that everything is in Spanish, I've only seen 3 small screens that had the sign version in English on it. Whoa! And 2 of them didn't work. But right now I'm in a train carriage, an old train. And this is an interactive experience. There are screens where there are supposed to be windows, and on the screens I can see the landscape moving by, and in front there's also a big screen to indicate that the train is driving. This is telling the story of the early last century. I think it was from 1915 to 1940, but in Spanish, so I better pay attention.
Clarissa grew up here in Monterrey, and since it's a business city with a high pulse, you have to adapt to the fast-paced lifestyle here.
It's a big city, and you have to adapt to the behavior. I think that is a good word to say it, because all the people, it's like they are hurry up. I don't know how to say it in English. It's like yes, and so you need to adapt to that rhythm. So it's complicated, because when I was young, it's not so easy to go, for example, to my friend's house, because it's to the other side of the city,
and the traffic can get a little bit crazy.
Yes, so that's like a really different comparing to other smaller city, but it's okay, because we have a lot of things here to do, and we occupy the number 3 in the most populous city in the country. So that is so really, really important here.
And even though we're not that far away from the U.S., you're the first person that I met today that speaks English.
Really?
So English is not something that everybody speaks here.
Yes, here is not. It's not common, because that I told you before, the education here in Mexico, well, in this part of Mexico, it's not too good. But we have also the really, really good private schools or education, but comparing this kind of like the high level and the middle level, there are a huge difference. So that's why a lot of people don't speak English very well.
So if people come to Monterrey, how do they find you?
By Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's Free Walking Tour Monterrey, and you can write a message, and we can meet in the meeting point every Sunday or every another day.
Okay. Yeah. Great. And I will put a link on my website so people can find you.
Okay.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
the
so
tour.
Much. Thanks to you, and I hope you enjoyed this tour, and you are welcome to visit anytime. Thank you. Thank you.
You can find Free Walking Tours Monterrey on Facebook and connect with Clarissa that way. Tell her I said hi.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
It's Thursday morning here in Monterrey, and I'm about to go on a hike to see some beautiful nature and a waterfall around Monterrey. It has not been the best of weather this week. In fact, it's been very, very cold, and it's been raining a lot. And this morning, just when I woke up, I got a message from the guide, and he says he's here in 5 minutes. From the guide saying, are you still interested in going with this rain, or should we reschedule? It should clear up according to the weather report, but you never know. But we decided that we would go, and it's not raining heavily. It's just a few drops here and there, so we're going for it, and this is my only chance to do this because I can't reschedule. I'm leaving Sunday, and I have something planned almost the entire time, the rest of my time here in Monterrey. And okay, he's gonna pick me up here in a few seconds. I think I see him. Hi.
I'm about to go on a hike in some beautiful nature just outside of Monterrey.
Thank you.
Something I found on Airbnb as an Airbnb experience. My guide, Luis Sotomayor, was a little bit late, but they have a thing here called Mexican time.
Sorry for the Mexican time.
No. Oh, you have Mexican time as well. Yeah. When I was in Greenland, they said, oh, we have Greenland time. And when I was in Bahamas, oh, we have island time. And when I was in Thailand, oh, this is Thai time. So you have Mexican time as well. Yeah.
We'll get back to Luis and the hike in a bit.
I've just about done with not one but two museums, because when you buy the ticket for the historical museum here in Monterrey, you also get a ticket for another museum that's in the building right next to it, and the ticket is free. It's 40 pesos, which is around $2, less than €2, and it's very interesting, especially the historical Museo de Historia Mexicana is very interactive and very much worth a visit. So I highly recommend that you go here. The two buildings are architecturally very beautiful buildings. They look like they've been built in the last 5 years or so, but in fact the historical museum is around 25 years old, and the other building, which is even more special, is only around 10 years old. I will take some photos and put them on the radiovagabond.com so you can see what these buildings look like. The only complaint I have is that they could have more signs in English. It can be a little bit difficult to understand, but considering the price of admission, you should definitely go here and spend an hour or two just walking around and looking at it. And if you can speak a little bit of Spanish, that would help, or get a Spanish guide, that would help. But definitely go here. It's so beautiful. But now we're going back on my hike that I had with Luis a few days ago. Luis, we're going on a hike. Is it going to be wet and slippery up there?
Oh, it's going to be really wet and really muddy. The day is not the best today, but it's going to be really nice. It's one of my favorite hikes in Monterrey.
Yeah. And how bad can it be for a local, experienced guy like you and a Viking? So
yeah.
we can do it.
No, we can do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
But what are we going to see?
We're going to see a lot of trees. Right now you're seeing like all the city, but you don't imagine that we will have that sight in some minutes. So it's going to be pretty amazing. We're going to see a river with nice waterfalls. Mm-hmm. So today there's a lot of water, so we are going to have a lot of water in the river because the rain, and it's going to be amazing.
When I look at the mountains around Monterrey, which is extremely beautiful. I see a lot of clouds. I have this week and also right now, are we going to be that high up that we'll be in the clouds and we won't be able to see anything?
No, as that we are going like in the river only. We are not into the mountain. We are not going to see all the Monterrey sites, but it's really easy to get that. So if you want, we can go in Saturday to another mountain.
And the waterfall that we're going to is called
La Estanzuela.
La Estanzuela.
I think.
And I saw some of the photos, and it looks absolutely beautiful. You decided to put this on Airbnb, and it actually is the first time I've booked an experience on Airbnb. I normally only use it for booking a place to stay, but they have a lot of experiences as well. How's that going for you?
It's really nice. I'm doing it for paying me paragliding classes. Because I also want to travel all around the world, but I want to do in paragliding.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm doing the experience for that, knowing how to do experience, and then doing the experience in paragliding for more people. So.
Yeah. And when you're not doing hiking and paragliding, you're studying?
Yeah, I'm studying entrepreneurship here in Monterrey. And I always want to have my own business, like for the business doing all the money, and I travel around the world for...
You want to be a digital nomad?
Yeah, more like, something like that.
I can highly recommend it.
Okay.
After my visit to the two museums, there was a boat ride that will take me down the beautiful Canal de Santa Lucia. And at the end of that, an amazing steel museum called Museo del Acero Horno 3.
Another thing I was recommended by some of the locals is that I do a boat ride. It should take an hour one way and an hour the other way with a short stop in one end, and looking forward to what to see here. But for now, it's very beautiful. Very beautiful.
To la derecha está ubicado el restaurante Tenerías. Esta área antiguamente.
At the end of the boat ride, there's a park with a technical museum. In here, you can see a lot of history about the steel. There used to be a steel factory right here, and there's a huge tower that you can get up to. Everywhere in this museum, they have a lot of young people explaining what the different parts of the steel industry.
I put a few links to the Steel Museum in the notes on theradiovagabond.com. Back in the nature with Louis, we're about to start the hike. And I can see that it's been raining a lot the past few days. It's muddy and sometimes very slippery.
Louis, the weather here, like I mentioned, it's not been super good this year, but you tell me that it changes a lot all the time.
Yeah, it's super crazy. They say here in Monterrey that if you don't like the weather, you only drive 5 minutes and it's going to change. Yeah. But today we don't have that changing weather, but I think in 1 or 2 hours it's going to change. So you're going to feel some of that.
Yeah. But let me tell you about the place I rented, because it's sort of a studio, an office that the guy who owns it uses. He's a photographer, and you can live there as well, but it's best when the weather is good. When I came here, it was so hot, and so I had the air condition on, so I could have it cool in there. But then when it started getting colder, Monday, Tuesday, Monday especially, it became so cold because there's no insulation, so it's got a tin roof, so it gets so cold, and I was really freezing, and I put the air condition to full blast on hot, but it didn't help. And I was sitting with my computer with my jacket on, working, and and my fingers were turning white because it was only like 10 degrees. So thank God I told him, and he said, "Oh, I have a heating blower that's," and he showed me where it was, and so that helped. So now I got the heat, but it was really, really cold.
Yeah, the thing is that's why I asked you if you have a cold, because from being in 30 degrees at Sunday to 9 degrees at Monday, it's really crazy, and a lot of people get sick. And a lot of exchange students also in my university, they get sick, and that's why let me ask if he's okay. Because the weather changed.
I feel okay. I can feel that I'm sneezing a little bit more than I did before, but now I'm okay.
So this is the beginning of the winter. This is the first cool wave we have, and the thing is that it's really crazy because I already told you that Monterrey weather is crazy. So we sometimes in Christmas we are at 25 degrees.
Oh.
Yeah. So right now it's really cold, and it's going to change a lot, like for November, December, but January it's almost all the time from 9 to -2 approximately.
But how cold does it get? Do you ever get snow here?
A little bit. Like we have more like ice coming down the sky, but it happens in summer or in winter or anytime.
It can happen anytime.
Yeah. So it's really crazy, and the cars start having like
sliding
this
because it gets slippery on the roads.
Yeah. And it's more ice than snow here.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. It's a website that helps you find the best prices on hotels and guest houses and hostels around the world. Hotels25.com.
Now we're walking, and Louis, we were just talking about the fact that a lot of people, especially people from the USA, they feel that they're the only Americans, but you're also Americans here.
Yeah, I'm also a North American, so that term is also incorrect.
Yeah. I met a guy in Canada. He's in the podcast I did from Quebec City, and he said, I call them United Staters.
Yeah, and I call them gringos.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it's a really funny story why we call them gringos. They invade Mexico at some point, and they were wearing green, everyone.
Ah.
So we say, like, Mexicans didn't know English at that time, and they say, green, go.
Oh,
so that's
my
why.
God.
And now it's a term we use for every gringo.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean gringos come to tourists in Mexico. It's really nice.
Yeah. No hate there.
No.
But you're not thinking about building a wall and making America pay for it?
No, it's okay, Mexicans. If there's going to build a wall, Mexicans will build it, and Mexicans will gain a lot of money about that. So do whatever you want. We still have visas, and we still have tunnels for that people.
You have tunnels. No problem. We still have tunnels.
Yeah, don't worry.
But what was the reaction in Mexico when Trump during the campaign started having people scream, "Build that wall"? What were you thinking?
Okay, a lot of people were like really upset about that mindset because we are like brothers, you know, like gringos and Mexicans and Canadians also, and it was really upset. But like this new generation was all about it and do a lot of memes, like in Facebook, about Trump, about his faces, his haircut, and everything. So it was really funny at the time to have all that material for fun.
Yeah, and the former president of Mexico, he posted some funny videos.
Oh yeah, it was really nice. We also have a lot of fun with him. Like he's speaking English. It's one of the best Every Mexican know what I'm talking about, but if you want to know, Mexican president speaking English, really funny. With that, you can find it.
And I did. I found it. Here's a little clip.
But as a result of such, there is also a fragmented society, where the investment in infrastructure may be the trigger of a buoyant domestic market that complements our exporting sector.
I put a longer video of the Mexican president Enrique Peña Nieto speaking English on the radiovagabond.com. It's really funny. And that's all we have time for in this episode, but we'll get back to Luis and the hike in the next one. Also, I'll share something from another experience that I had the next night, and this was also something I booked as an Airbnb experience. We're going to a big football match with a local. And then I find out why I'm actually here. It was a bit of a mystery until I got a message from somebody I met in Bosnia-Herzegovina. So much more coming up in the next episode, and I'm so looking forward to that. My name is Palabo. See ya.
Produced by radioguru.co.uk.